So you see, the managers and the owners, they are not architects. They are more of auditors, if you will. And once they are the ones that call the shots and are in charge of the pipelines, artistry will always be secondary to stability. So here's the ugly truth, my fellow analysts of power. Broken games are not accidents. They're not bugs that manage to slip through the cracks, or a dev that clicked on an email that said he had won like $1 bajillion and malware infected the system and it corrupted the game. Not at all. The truth of the matter is, broken games are actually business decisions. In other words, when the game was shipped in its broken state, the people behind those games, in their mind, consciously knew what they were doing. Somebody in a suit, could have been multiple somebodies, all looked at the game, at the unfinished build, at the cracks, and they put their stamp of approval on it and said, ship it, we'll patch it later. Now, we've already talked about what sits as a priority in the minds of Konami managers and as well as their owners. They prioritize stability so blindly that to them, it's simply the ultimate end. They don't necessarily care about shaping industries, becoming trailblazers, and ironically, the prestige and the money that comes with being that. Konami mostly cares about greed. That is their sole defining characteristic. And it's not just a Konami thing. It is the sole defining characteristic for the managerial revolution or the managerial class. Stability over artistry is simply another way of saying greed is king. Because for some reason, I don't understand why. Okay, I do understand why. When they ousted and part ways with Hideo Kojima, do you have any idea what Konami spent most of their time on when not making incredible games? Konami spends most of their money and energy on pachinko. I'm not sure if that's how you pronounce it, but it's pachinko. Anyway, that's how I pronounce it. Pachinko is basically gambling, slot machines, and fitness clubs. That's where most of their money goes into. So to Konami, they're like, dude, I have a steady stream of revenue that's always coming through. I don't need to gamble my money on the whims of an auteur like Kojima, a reckless spender, who could just lead to the death of our company. With pachinko, we have steady revenue, and we will be here long after studios that have chased prestige have all crumbled, withered away, and died. We will still be here at the end of the day. So that's mostly where Konami spends most of the chunk of their time. Pachinko machines, slot machines, gambling machines, and fitness clubs. They're not too much. They're like Konami dabbles. They dabble in gaming. The reason as to why I say they dabble in gaming is because I'm sure you guys already noticed their projects suck. Metal Gear Survive was a crystal clear example of that. Konami doesn't care about games anymore. And it shows in how they even approach the games that they do make. And the hypocrisy of Konami is that Konami will stand by what they did, and they will say it was a good business decision to part ways with Kojima because Kojima was going to lead to the end of our company as we know it. And then they turn around and use the IP that Kojima was working on, and they start milking it dry. And you ask yourself, like, whoa, bro, I don't get it. If you guys were not a fan of Kojima and his projects and his work, then why are you using his work to make money off it? Why are you profiting off of it? Why not just do something else? Why not just go for your pachinko machines, your gambling machine? Why don't you just continue with that? And Konami will look at you like the crazy one, and they'll be like, dude, what are you talking about? Metal Gear is an IP. It's company property. It's ours. It's our thing. It would make sense for us to actually use it and make money off of it because it belongs to us. And even more so now that Kojima is out of the picture, because now we can actually make a Metal Gear game that doesn't have the overzealous and incredibly expensive vision that Kojima brought about. And then the funny thing is, you're like, okay, whatever you say, Konami, I guess, yeah, I guess you have a point then. I mean, it's your IP. Yeah, sure. And then when you give them time to cook, what do they bring? They bring Metal Gear Survive. A terrible, terrible installment. And it's like, so this is what you guys bring when we give you time to cook. This is what you actually deliver. And I'm not even surprised that Metal Gear Delta turned out this way, because they don't prioritize gamer satisfaction. They don't prioritize artistry. To them, the Metal Gear franchise is so massive, so powerful, that regardless of how the game is made, what state the game is in, they know that gamers are going to be like, hey, it's Metal Gear. Of course I'll buy it, you know? They know that the name has so much weight, aura, and gravitas. They know what it represents. That's why they're using the IP in order to milk it for more money. And I hope you analysts are actually clocking this, that once Kojima left, look at the games that actually come out now. Now, all of a sudden, it's crystal clear the reason behind the notoriously long dev times that Kojima spent on the games. That this guy was actually willing to go the extra mile to make sure that when the product was actually out, he was satisfied. Konami has now eliminated long dev times. This is the result. This is what it looks like. Games ship broken because Konami doesn't actually prioritize gamer satisfaction. They don't prioritize artistry. They prioritize stability. As long as the game brings in money, that's good enough for them. Maybe even if the game doesn't bring in as much money as they would like to, it doesn't necessarily matter. They will still use the IP so long as it is beneficial to them. And once it's not, they got the slot machines. So you see, analysts, the devs, the real devs, I'm not talking about the modern woke devs that pretend to know what they're doing. I'm talking about the actual devs. Actual devs that actually give a damn about their work don't want to ship their games in a broken mess or in a broken state. But you see, the thing is, that's not actually their choice. The managers are the ones who decide that. Devs don't get the final say. So you see, analysts, Metal Gear Delta didn't ship in a broken state by accident. It shipped broken because Konami's processors deemed it that way. And guess what the scary part is? Once you kill artistry in favor of stability, you don't just break one game, you break the future.